simple robot posing tutorial. Okay, forgive me for my voice, I'm still recovering, but since I couldn't come to class today, and given the attendance of my previous cohort, I understand you guys have deadlines this week. I thought I would just cover this little demo, which is what I wanted to have covered in class. Okay, so this applies to all cohorts. So first of all, as you guys can see, I'm in render preview mode, so I can see some of the lights in the robot. If I go to material preview, we can see that some of the robot parts are pink. So this indicates a missing resource, right? So how do we make sure all the textures that we use, assets that we bring inside Blender, are saved to the file? You go to File, External Data, and you make sure this is ticked, okay? Tick automatically pack resources. You can pack resources and then have this ticked. That way, when you save your work, it will come with the textures or HDR environments that you might be using. Okay, so please keep that in mind. The second thing I want everyone to pay attention to is the layer tab. You can see that this robot is very well organized, right, in blocks. So really take the time to group your parts. That's really important for file management and also for the next step, which is parenting. Yeah, so I'm gonna go to solid preview so we can just focus on the separate parts, right? I'm just gonna take an option here for seeing the sorry, so we can actually see object color assigned to random. So here on this little drop bar, right next to the viewport options, we can change to random. So now we know that parts with the separate color are separate parts. We're gonna have to join parts to make sure they rotate, right? So you can see this is a pretty cool robot, but it's a very static pose, right? So how can we make sure that our robot has a more interesting pose for our final poster? First, what we gotta do is think about the separate parts, right? So most of you probably are using the mirror modifier, right? To mirror parts, right? So the first thing we're gonna have to do is to apply modifiers to the parts that we want to move, okay? So in this case, I want to move the legs up, right? So I'm gonna select all the parts by holding down Shift, right? One thing that I do in any modeling software, either CAD or Blender, is I delete to see if I selected what I wanted. So Control Z, I know these are the parts that I have, okay, delete, right, okay, these are the parts, so I still need to select this, delete. It looks like I got everything. So this is what we can call the foot of the robot, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply all the modifiers, okay? We can apply them by going here and apply them individually, but certain modifiers require you to apply them in the right order. Instead of doing that, what we can do is right click and convert this whole thing to a mesh. So it's no longer modifiers, but a mesh, right? A final mesh object. So when we do that, the objects get converted, and we can now click on the individual parts, and you see the modifier is gone, right? So what we're going to do is actually, don't click out, right? So here I have the parts grouped. What we can do is join them by pressing Ctrl J, Command J. You see now they are the same color. That means they are joined, right? Separate parts, Ctrl J, same color, right? So now what we can do is press Tab into edit mode and press P for separate, and separate by loose parts, okay? Separate by loose parts. Now you can see you separated all the parts again. Why we had to do that before? Because when they were mirrored, they were joined together. Now I have a left set of pieces and a right set of pieces, right? So what we're gonna do now is join just the right foot, right? So I'm gonna hold Shift, join them, right? Do my technique of delete. Oh, I missed this part. See, I missed this. So undo, undo, rotate, select that as well. Delete. Yes, looks like I got everything. So I'm gonna undo it, and what I'm gonna do, the same thing we did before, Ctrl J. So see, now I have a single foot, right? Seems like I'm missing this part still. That's right. So I can select it, Ctrl J. Now I got a single foot with all the parts that I want. We're gonna do the same thing to the second part of the leg, right? This one, which will be the parent part. So what is the steps we're gonna go through? Select all parts, delete. Oh yeah, it looks like I got everything. No worries. I can now right click, convert to mesh again, and then Control J, right? We can see that now they are the same block, but I want to manipulate the legs individually. So what do? Tab. Now I'm in edit mode. I can press P and separate by loose parts again. Boop. What happens? They are separate parts. I go back to object mode, right? Pressing tab or drop down and select these two. Okay. Tab. Oh, sorry. Actually, object mode. Yeah. We select. This is a single cylinder, so actually I also need to separate this guy. So I'm gonna go P by loose parts. I think what happened is this cylinder still has the mirror. See, still mirroring. So I need to do what? Right click, convert, mesh. The mirror modifier is gone. I can now press tab, P, separate by loose parts. Right? So now we can see I got a purple cylinder and orange cylinder. So now I can select these again. Ctrl J, oops, Ctrl J, oops. These two, right? All of them. Ctrl J, no. What's happening? These are joined. Ah, that's right. I didn't apply the mirror for this as well. So it's important to always check that your modifiers are applied. I think I undid it. So convert mesh. See, it's gone. No problem. We go into edit mode again. P by loose parts, right? So now we have these parts, right? Separated. Actually, again, P by loose parts, right? Object mode. Now I can actually do that to this as well. P loose parts. Okay, no problem, right? Now I can join the leg bits, right, into a single upper leg part. Okay, so now you can see I have one upper leg, one lower leg of the right side of the robot. So now is the fun part. What are we gonna do? We're gonna parent this part to this one. Okay, so let's do that. Select the bottom part, Control P, not P, Control P, and set parent to object and keep transform. Okay, so once again, select the child part, hold shift, select the parent. So the parent will be the orange outline, and the child the red outline. Control P and object keep transform. Okay, boom. Now what happens? This part is parented to this part. Okay, we can now go rotate and rotate this part. You see the leg moves together, right? So I can move the leg all the way up and it rotates accordingly. Okay, so how do we now rotate perhaps this leg down a little bit, right? How do we do that? We can now rotate it, right, the same way. So keep transform. Okay, so now it's rotating. You can see how easily you can rotate parts using parenting, right? So what about the fingers? Actually, my robot has fingers like this, like a hand or a claw. How can I actually separate these parts now that I put this in the pose that I want, right? What you do is just separate it again. Edit mode, P, by loose parts. Boop. What happens? I have loose parts now. So now I can select individual parts and rotate them, right? The problem is, what's happening here? The origin of this part is there, right? So we rotate in relationship to that origin. So what should we do? We can go to our side view, right? Use the 3D cursor on the top left. Add snapping to face, so we'll snap to this face. Right? Click and drag, snap, and then right click, set the origin of this part to the 3D cursor. Right? Boom. Now, where is the rotation axis? Right there, where we want it. Now we can rotate this up and down. Right? We can do the same thing to this part. You can see that the 3D cursor will be similar, so I can just right click, set point the 3D cursor, yeah, and rotate this part as well, right? So now I have a much more dynamic sort of posing, right? So this is one example here. What about posing the arm, right? the arm has multiple angles of articulation. We can do the same thing, right? We can first rotate this axis, so we select the top parts of the arm, right? One quick way to select is just to click and drag, hold Control, click and drag. Make sure you're clicking and dragging, otherwise it will deselect. And then click and drag the bounding box to deselect the items you don't want. So same trick again, delete, right? Do it again, delete, do it again. In this case, we can actually see that the biceps and the shoulder are the items that I want, right? So I can actually open the biceps and the shoulder and just select all of it, right? That's even easier. Or select the two, right? Sorry, we have to go inside here. Select all of the parts, okay? That's why naming your files is really important. What are we gonna do? The same. Oh, perhaps not the shoulder though, not this part, right? We want this to be fixed. So the donut stays away. We can now do right click, convert to mesh, right? So now we have our mesh, and then we join them, right? Sorry, we make sure that all the parts are modifiers are applied, so that's good. Instead of joining them, let's just select what we want and join them separately. Probably easier, right? Now there's something, I think one of them, yeah, let's just select all of it like we did before, and then we can make sure that by pressing tab, P by loose parts, right? All the objects are now separate, right? The sides are separate. There's something weird happening here, it's okay. We can just join these guys, right? As the wires, he has some wires inside, so I'm just gonna turn the wires off. Let's turn the wires off. Boop, no more wires. So once again, select these, hold Control, click and drag to deselect, click and drag. I just want the top part of the arm, right? Okay, like delete. This is what I want to move up, right? Delete. Okay, now I have this sort of shoulder unit. So I'm gonna deselect these parts as well, boop, because this is the only moving part, right? Now we can join them. Ctrl J. You can see it's a single part now. And then we can do the same thing to the bottom, right? We're gonna apply the modifiers to all of these, right? You can see that on the right side the modifiers are still there. Right click, convert to, oh, sorry, important bit. Make sure your subdivision modifier is never above 3. This is why I've been saying to everyone, never do anything above level 3, otherwise you're going to create a mesh with too many faces and your computer might crash, okay? So I recommend level 2, 3 max, right? We're going to go right click, convert to mesh. What is it doing? Applying all transformations, right? Boom. See? Modifiers are gone. Now we go select individual parts, all of them again. They're still mirrored, right? You can see they're still repeating on the other side. We go tab, P, loose parts. Oh, P, loose parts. Yeah, so actually separated more than I wanted. P by loose parts. Boom. Okay. So now we have the right unit, right? So I can just click and drag, find an angle that's easier, click and drag, right? Hold Control, click and drag for control, right? Remove these, remove these. Do I have it? It looks like it, right? Great, nothing else is selected. Control J, single object. What do? We parent. Select the parent unit, right? So this is, the child is always the first, the parent is the second, right? Control P, object, keep transform. Now, I will rotate the arm on these axes. You can see, oops, rotate on the red axis. What's happening here? Global. Perhaps what I have to do is change it to local. Yeah, that's better. And now rotate it locally to that cylinder, right? So I can rotate the arm up a little bit. And now what I can do is rotate this part, right? But we want our pivot point to be here. So what do? Well, we can snap to face again if we want. Click and drag, snap to that face, right? Looks like it, right? We can be more precise and select this object first, go into edit mode, and perhaps snap to a vertex, right? Or, yeah, and then we can drag it to this vertex, right? more or less. It's not where I want. Perhaps snap to edge center, right? Boom, it looks pretty good to me, right? We go back to object mode, select this, actually, that's one we want to rotate, set origin to 3D cursor. Now, what happens when we rotate? The rotation axis is there. We can rotate it, right, locally. So remember, global versus local is important when orienting your parts. So now we can have a much cooler pose. I can still rotate this, and it will keep the pose that we wanted, right? And then I could do that to this leg, could do that to this arm, to the claw, the head, right? So let's see what it looks like with the pose. Perhaps a bit more interesting, right? So have fun posing your robots. I apologize for not coming to class this afternoon, but I'll be checking all your Myros by Friday. So please update your work in progress, and I can't wait to see your robots coming to life. Good job, everyone.